We're having a brief look at the book of Revelation in the Bible. This book is often misunderstood to be about the end of the world, and people look around the world for this leader or that leader who is expected to be the Antichrist and to usher in the last days any moment from now. In this view, the church is about to be raptured to heaven, and God doesn't really have a purpose for the church on earth or for the earth itself, as all things are about to be destroyed. This is very contrary to the biblical view about the kingdom of Christ and about the church. God initiated the kingdom through Jesus when he first came, in order that through the church he might renew the nations of the world. So the church is very much supposed to be on earth. Our purposes here have not yet been completed, and through the church God is bringing change to the nations, and he is establishing the kingdom rule of Christ to bring blessing to the world. This is very much depicted in the book of Revelation. At the end of the Revelation, the last one or two chapters, talks about heaven coming down to earth, heaven and earth being united, joined together, and being blessed. And in this, God is fulfilling his promise to Abraham that through Abraham's seed, that is Jesus and his church, all nations of the world shall be blessed. So let's have a very quick, brief look at the book of Revelation about its content. First of all, it's symbolic. It uses apocalyptic style prophetic language, which is heavy in symbolism, like the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament, some parts of the book of Daniel, some parts of other prophets of the Old Testament. This is symbolic language and very deep in meaning. I don't mean deep as in complicated, but rich in meaning for the church and for our faith today and for our involvement in the world. Now, the book starts, of course, in chapter 1, and if we look at chapter 1 and verse 7, it says, "Behold, he comes quickly." Now, the coming of the Lord here is not the second coming. It's talking about his coming to judge Israel and Jerusalem in the 1st century AD. And Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD by Rome. So this is a strong prophetic warning to the nation at that time. It says, "Behold, he comes quickly, and every eye shall see him, and those which pierced him, and all tribes of the earth shall wail for him." Now this is a quote from the book of Zechariah, but just to take it verse by verse, it says, "Every eye shall see him, and those who pierced him." Literally in the Greek, it's even those who pierced him. So it's referring to Jerusalem, where Jesus was crucified, and then it says, "All tribes of the earth shall wail because of him." Now the tribes here, the Greek word is speaking about the tribes of Israel. That's a word there that is often used for the tribes of Israel. It's not ethnos, which refers to the Gentile nations or the Gentile tribes, but phulbi, which is a Greek word that refers to the tribes of Israel. And it says that, so all the tribes of the earth, and the word earth there in Greek is ge, and that is often used to represent the land of Israel in the Old Testament. So this verse is specific about a judgment on Jerusalem, the tribes of Israel in the 1st century that was about to come. So if this is the introduction of the book of Revelation, if this is the subject matter of the book, then what about the date? When was the book of Revelation written? Was it written before 70 AD, before Jerusalem was destroyed, or after? There's always been difference of opinion on this. Some have said it was written in the 90s AD and that Apostle John wrote it when he was very old and that he was never martyred. He died of an old age, naturally. Jesus said that John would be martyred. He said that when James and John wanted to sit at his right and left hand. Jesus specifically said he would be martyred. And there's evidence in other parts of the early church. The Syriac Bible, for example, says that Revelation was written while John was on the Isle of Patmos, sent there by Nero. A lot of tradition in church history says that Revelation was written when Nero was emperor, and that is in the the 50s and 60 AD. And when we look at the internal evidence of Revelation itself, it seems to be pointing specifically at Nero. Emperor Nero, in the Hebrew language, the Hebrew alphabet, numerically adds up to 666. In the Latin alphabet, in the Latin translation of the early text in the 2nd century, the beast is given the numeric value of 616, which again is Emperor Nero in the Latin language. And there's a lot of other indicators in the book of Revelation about Nero. He was the one persecuting the church most heavily at that time in the 1st century. He persecuted the church for 3.5 years after Rome was burnt until Nero died. And Revelation specifically says 3.5 years. So there's a lot of indicators here. Won't go into them in detail, but you can get this book. It's called Rediscovering Revelation. And it goes into these things in quite detail. So very quickly, Revelation is about the birth of the church, the birth of Christ's kingdom during the time when the church was heavily persecuted by Jerusalem and by Nero's empire. It's about the Christians coming through that persecution and the kingdom of Christ prevailing and reaching the nations, transforming the nations. Revelation says the kingdoms of this world are becoming the kingdoms of his Lord and of his Christ. And so Revelation has a real rich meaning for us today. Even though the church will be persecuted today by different leaders or groups or nations, God is showing us that his purposes through the church, even though it will suffer, the church will bring the blessing of God to the nations and bring renewal. So Revelation is full of hope. It's not saying that the church is to be taken out of this world as a type of escape, but that the church will be victorious in the world and bring renewal to the nations. This is depicted at the end of the book by a river that's going out to the nations, trees of life that are feeding the nations, bringing healing and blessing to the nations. So plainly, we are here to bring a real blessing to all nations and to all people, to fill the world and to have dominion, not in a worldly sense of dominion, but by serving the nations as Christ served. God's plan for this world is to be fulfilled. So see the Revelation as in the right way. Again, it's not an escapist book, but it's a book of promise. It's a book of hope, and it's a book of transformation of this world through the power of God and through the kingdom of Jesus Christ.